Thank you. Christian, so I would like to invite you now to, we are in your hands now.
Okay, thank you, Raluca. And if you can manage the slides then to show what we talk about and what it is about, it will be nice. So you can go immediately to the second one. So today, what we want to do is to have a small introduction, especially reminding for those who have not looked into the questionnaire of the self-assessment. Then we look to the result of the woman self-assessments, and also then it's your turn to tell what improvement can be achieved. Then the same for the youth. Finally, in the part, I will try to show that there are differences between the two assessments and try to explain why are there, and then to look to the conclusions and next steps. Next two slides, please. Yes, the introduction. So the OECD with the European Commission, especially the DG Employment, have created this self-assessment tool around six modules. So what is the culture about entrepreneurship in region cities? What is the regulation, the strategy, other support for skill, finance, and networking? It's about perception. So nobody who had to fill in the questionnaire had to collect data from how many companies were helped, did they create at the end of the day or whatever. And it's not for benchmarking. So you will not compare what has been done in Timisoara with something in another country. It's just for you. So for looking what are the strengths and the weaknesses in the system, and to find out what can be done differently and at what level. We will see in one case, probably it's at the state level that you have to do something. And it can be used, what we have done up to now is to assess. So we have the assessment. So the second step will be to invite other stakeholders to compare the perception. That's what we do with the first result. You can learn from the system. You can have examples from other regions to inspire. And of course, you can share this result with other people. Next stage, slide, please. So there are in the system 5 target groups: women and youth, what was chosen by Raluca. There is a module for migrants, long-term employed people, and social entrepreneurs. The questions are more or less the same, but the focus is different. From previous experience, I've learned that people would look also to aging entrepreneur, ethnic minorities, or people into transition. I have already told you about the 5 parameters. So the culture, the strategy, and the regulation, skills, access to finance, and networking. At this stage, I want to make a transition to remember that I see at least 5 reasons why entrepreneurship is important at local level. First of all, it's innovation. An entrepreneur is often innovative, even if it is not high tech. The second, it creates jobs, even if it is his own job. It's bringing competition. Newcomers always induce reaction from the people in place, even if sometimes they have to admit that they have to fail. It's accelerating the change in a community, especially today where we need social and cultural change. And when I say cultural, it's equal opportunity. We have seen and listened already to some women entrepreneurs. And finally, it's introduced fresh blood into your community. Next slide, please. So we review the perception, you make suggestion, and we identify difference in support. And we can now start with the first assessment results for women. on the 17th, so it last Friday, we had 7 people who complete the survey. And you see they represent different organizations, one from academia, one from business organization, and 5. For those people, don't worry, it's confidential. Nobody will see what you reply. When we see the result, there is a certain homogeneity of the system, but apparently people believe that the strategy is not as dynamic or as good in their perception than the other ingredients. And the level of the score with a 4 in general show that there is something, but maybe people expect to have a more efficient system. Next slide. We will have a quick look to the different questions for each of the parameters. So for cultural factor, we see that people are more or less confident about the quality of the formal education, who give positive attitudes towards women entrepreneurship. With, from my side, no surprise, monitoring and evaluation is not as strong as it could be. And we see that the way it's proposed to different profile is not also highly scored. And this is something that I have spoken by many years, to make segmentation when you do public policy and not to have a general topic. Next, please, for the strategy. So here it says that the intermediary organization who propose to help women entrepreneurs are rather well equipped. But at the bottom, it says that the monitoring and evaluation is not used as it should be, and that the appropriate financial resources to implement women entrepreneur, even if it is set youth there, is not always allocated in the best way. Next one. The regularity context, we see that social security system is a problem. And of course, this is something to tackle at national level and not necessarily in a regional context or whatever. Next one, please. So for the skill, we see that people score relatively high the entrepreneurship training, which is offered. But when you go to the bottom, they are not necessarily tailored to different profile of women. And also very important, and it was good that we have people from the both community. There is not enough linkage between business support and non-business support. So that's something that can be improved. That's a battle I had during many years at Sarada to better link the financial community with the people who give soft support. Finally, for the network, next slide, please. Okay.
The finance is now on the screen.
So yes. Yeah, sorry, I was too quickly. Sorry. There we see that the finance for startup seems to be appropriate, but not the later stage. And there again, we saw business angel into the room. And finally, for network, there is apparently a good assessment to identify how women entrepreneurs should network between themselves and outside. But at the end of the day, people told that it's not enough actively animate. So we have the infrastructure, but not necessarily the content. So if we look to what are the high perception, for culture is the education, for strategy, the support providers, which are well equipped. For regulation, there seems to have no undue difficulties to women entrepreneur, and that the information are rather tailored for the creation of business, skills appropriate, finance for startup, but later on a little problem, and of course a good assessment of the needs to make networking activities. Next one. And when we look to the result, monitoring and evaluation is not as used as it might be for the cultural environment and the strategy, and even for regulation. For skills, not enough tailored development to take into account the different profile of women, and also this linkage between the entrepreneur and the financing community. For finance, again, monitoring and evaluation, and for network, the animation. So that's for the global picture about the perception. As I mentioned already, and I insist on that, it's perception. And now it's up to you whether the people who didn't participate in the self-assessment agree more or less of the strength and the weakness. And of course, what can at local level, at regional level, or national level be done to improve a little bit the different parameters. Just as an explanation, the OECD have used these tool assessments to discuss at different level, at the country level, for instance, with Luxembourg, and in different region, but as Raluca mentioned, it's still a pilot, so more can be achieved there. Who wants to comment and to give his fresh perspective?
Well, I would like just to invite you to, when you would like to say something, just we are not a very large group, so we can do this very smoothly by just opening your mic and contributing. I would first of all say that my perception is that that this perception is quite optimistic and quite positive. I can understand from this assessment that indeed there are no additional burdens or additional obstacles for women, which is true. But on the other hand, we all know that there are no incentives, or there are no bespoke initiatives for women entrepreneurship. So yeah, this is my perception of the perception.
Yeah, but on that point, what is important is the cultural attitude behind from the people who have to give support of finance or different. You can have a nice equality program, but then the attitude behind might be preventing to have the real equality. It's not only for women, you can have that also maybe for you, for migrants or whatever on it. So amongst the women entrepreneur, what was their experience with the 6 parameters there? Where was the bottlenecks that they had to fight most before starting their business, or in the period just before starting the business, let's say?
Yeah, well, you don't need to be shy.
No.
Just yeah, just contribute to whatever comes to your mind. Maybe if I can well, invite Bianca or Miriam. I know that they have a very direct experience, Bianca from the point of view of supporting entrepreneurs, and Miriam from the role of entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think I can start. So I think the conclusion, I mean, I'm not against the conclusion, but I would just like to share my personal experience and my perception on this. So in terms of, I think I can speak a little bit more about the financing. I saw that the offer, it's considered to be appropriate, but still I have this program for startups, and the share of women, it's twice comparing to our standard portfolio. And I believe there are some reasons, and I will try to briefly explain them. So from a bank perspective, the credit policy usually requires some sort of previous experience in the industry, managing other companies or work as a professional in that specific industry. And this, of course, impacts the access to finance for both women and young entrepreneurs. And also, I saw that there is the lack of some real support networks between SME, and a lack of, say, of models, of mentors. This was revealed in our internal studies as more important shortcomings. What we try to do in Factory, we try to eliminate these barriers, and first we try to learn about this untapped market of startups, building this first program that grant loans to company from idea phase. Our loans are backed by warranty, mainly COSME program, to mitigate part of the risks associated with startups, with women, with young entrepreneurs. So yes, I would stress here the importance of the financial instruments, grants, subsidies, portfolio guarantees in addressing the needs of these segments. Secondly, starting with the last year, we launched an entrepreneurial education program, and we had more than 300 applicants. I believe there is a proven correlation between education and entrepreneurial activities. And I'm not necessarily referring here to education meaning gathering knowledge, but mostly in, let's say, changing the attitudes regarding entrepreneurship. And we saw that the number of applicants coming from women decreased at the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic. And we believe that women are seeking, let's say, a secure path to success, even though it is the harder or more difficult one. They are more serious and persevering in their action. Therefore, it's important to encourage them, especially during crisis. So we had this incubator, let's say, and we had more than 300 hours of mentorship and more than 50 mentors involved. And together we try to eliminate this fear of presenting new ideas, the kind of reserved attitudes and behaviors in working groups. I don't know if fear is the right word, but the fear to innovate and to adopt risky decision, all of them with negative impact on business, volatile environment in which normally the most courageous and creative entrepreneurs survive. So this is important to have this kind of programs and to encourage women to participate and try to validate their belief and their trust in building a business. Another fact is the positive, to have positive entrepreneurial models. Usually they stimulate the startup of the business and they have an important impact on entrepreneurs. And here, unfortunately, women have, I believe, few feminine models as compared to men because of their long exclusion, let's say, from the leadership of the economic and social life, but also because women who enjoy success are not necessarily assuming mentor roles. So this leads to the reduction of the positive effect on the decision of starting a business of the potential entrepreneurs. And we have, for example, a small factory team of 4. We are all women, and we try to achieve the gender balance when selecting our partner in order to transmit the right message and to encourage women. Yeah, for young entrepreneurs, I think what we try to do, and I think it should continue. We try to join forces with the Economic and Technical University to present this factory ecosystem and the opportunities. Gabriel already mentioned that he was part of the program, and I take also the opportunity to thank him. And yeah, we have an example. We are waiting for our youngest participant in the program to finalize his high school studies in order to access the loan and implement the project. So it's possible, but I think that we should do, let's say, more than what we are used to do in order to support. And yeah, I think supporting women in their involvement in setting up a new business and small business and to unlock this potential, it's an important part also, should be an important part of government actions to foster entrepreneurial activities. And unfortunately, at least I was not involved in specific programs addressed to women or to youth in the past few years.
Yeah, thank you. Somebody else?
I can say a few words.
Yeah.
If I may.
No,
So,
sure.
whilst I'm totally in agreement with the conclusion, which I'd like to state once again to make sure I got it just right. So there are no dedicated instruments for women in entrepreneurship. But here I would add that it's very important in order to create such instruments, such dedicated opportunities, to look more boldly at the exact needs of women in entrepreneurship and their exact obstacles. Whilst we always kind of talk generally about women in entrepreneurship, we avoid a bit the exercise to actually identify the obstacles that women might face, or not necessarily obstacles, but let's say harder times that women have in taking on entrepreneurship and then continuing to do that. And for me, it's my personal experience is that what conclusion I've drawn that this is particularly important also to when dealing with this, to split young women entrepreneurship into more experienced women in entrepreneurship. They have different sets of obstacles, and they face different types of challenges. For instance, if younger women in entrepreneurship are seen like naive and maybe less skilled, for instance, and less encouraged to do things. More experienced women face the need, exactly what Bianca said, to have stability, and they're often questioned in terms of long-term reliability in a project, because they have to maybe establish a family or kind of put a pause on their project. So I think without getting into more in-depth topics, I think it's very important to look, yes, more bravely and more authentically at the exact challenges that women face also related to the culture they're in, because this is also different depending on, so I don't think that a special instrument just for being a woman in entrepreneurship would be straight to the point, but maybe a special instrument that is related to a special need or challenge that women face in a certain cultural environment. So maybe this talk should be more extended, and I hope I wasn't too vague about it. I am sort of seen as a more experienced woman in entrepreneurship, and I was confronted with this question: what happens if I don't know, you extend your family, and what happens to the project? You are a sole founder, you don't have a co-founder. But so these types of things that besides actual consequences that might have when a woman is already engaged in a project, might also act as deterrents before an experienced woman actually decides to enter entrepreneurship. She might think, oh, but I hope I haven't been off topic, and I got things right, and didn't waste your time too much.
I think you are right in this sense to link specific needs with specific situation or solution instead of having a global approach of it. I used to say in a lot of presentation that there are different kind of needs. The obvious one, sorry. So women should create jobs or their company. This is what we talk about. Then you have the express needs. Finance might be one or whatever. And then there are the real needs, and you touch a point there when you say, well, if the solo woman entrepreneur needs to create a family and have children, what is an offer there for ensuring that the company will continue to grow or even to survive during this period? And the children care is not enough in that case. And there are probably other specific needs that a special situation or solution could be put on the table.
We have Radu from the Technical University, and then Bianca, who raised hands.
Okay, thank you, Raluca. Well, I want to speak a little bit from our experience, which is mainly dealing with young entrepreneurs, not too much about distinctions between male and female. We have quite a good number of girls which are studying technical fields now compared to years ago, which is a very good thing. On the other hand, I can say that roughly they are sometimes more dedicated than the boys, and they are hardworking. So there is no problem with attracting women, young women, as being part of the entrepreneurial activities. From our experience, the problem is the lack of predictability. The lack of predictability of the projects, of the programs which are helping these sort of programs, and the lack of predictability of the timeline. And I would just give an example now. There are some startup programs which are supporting for the structural funding. We can select students and we can offer them some support in order to open their startups. There was a competition about 2 years ago. After lack of about 5 years of another competition. This is not good. You need stability, you need predictability. On the other hand, after having that competition, the results were first of all announced immediately in about 2 months, And after that, for the signing of the contract, it took another 1 year. When finally the contract was signed, there was a push from the part of view of the administration at the level of ministry to do all the activities we planned for 1 year in just half a year, which means selecting of the group of students, doing their preparation in entrepreneurial skills, doing some activities in as virtual enterprises and so on. And this is again not good, because it's quite a pressure, and it's making people not to be so fond about having this sort of experience. So I would say that from our point of view, the predictability of the financing of the competitions is at least the same importance as giving students the entrepreneurial skills during their education. And sometimes you can just lose people like that, because we just have students at the level of bachelor that have such an experience which they consider after all a bad experience, because they are forced to do things in a very short period of time, and they didn't realize exactly what they wanted. And when they are coming to the level of PhD students or PhD studies, for instance, when they have a research idea, when they have innovative ideas to be implemented, they say, no, I'm not going to do like that. I will prefer to find a partner from the economy to support me, or I will simply go and work for a bigger company, and that's all. So this is our experience. So no problem from our point of view, at least, about attracting women. We know that we can do that, and we are very satisfied with the level of involvement of the girls. But the predictability of funding is something which is sometimes doing even worse than if not having a program. Thank you.
Yeah, you just illustrate what I mentioned by the real needs, which is predictability and time enough to implement your project.
Yes, that's true. And if you want another example, for instance, in those programs, there is no target for the number of girls, for instance, but there is a target for the number of Roma students to be involved. Probably, if you want to be fair, we should put targets on different groups as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. There is Bianca and then Anne raised hands.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say that I totally agree with what Miriam said. Women face other barriers and challenges than men, and also they react differently to possible obstacles. And underappreciation, not being able to fully dedicate to business because of the family pressure for results, because women have to prove their business. All this negatively affect the entrepreneurial spirit of women, I believe. And I saw traditional approaches of researches conducted in this field that were based on comparing the performance of companies led by women versus those compared by men, by identifying the percentage of women involved in entrepreneurial activities in different countries. But I think we need new research lines that to examine the relationship between women entrepreneurial experience and their family life, that compare the way in which women and men exploit entrepreneurial opportunities, that identify the resources that contribute to success of business women, that study the underlying motives for women to start a business, the influence of political constraints, the influence of rural versus urban on women entrepreneurial behavior, the impact of the economic crisis on the creation of new businesses by women. So The message will be to go in depth with the analysis and also with the methods. And for example, I know that women entrepreneurs tend to exploit opportunities in areas such as education or health and less in manufacturing, but I didn't see any specific program that will exploit this.
Yeah, I would very much. I'm very much in favor of going in depth in understanding more about women entrepreneurship, about mindset, attitudes, emotions, approaches to problem solving, approaches to building the network. Definitely. I think this is where the true value can be created. Anne, if you would like to join the discussion. Just to open your mouth. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. I will split my my thoughts in two. I agree with all, starting from Christian, with all that spoke today. But besides, I don't want to argue with Bianca, because Raiffeisen is also my bank from 20 years. So I wanted to tell you, Bianca, that here also that I have a very good relationship with the bank manager, because it's a former university colleague of mine. I didn't hear till Raluca that Raiffeisen has such a program. So
we are working on that, Anne.
Yes, I will tell also my bank to show me and tell me. Related to the programs that were in the last 4 years in Romania, related to startups, not only women but also young. And our colleague from my colleagues from universities can intervene here, because I see some of these startups go year by year, because it's what we do. I would like to point out two problems. Even there is finance, as little as it is, with money from banks. Bianca told us what are the conditions, but from European country, and also every program has conditioning to receive the money. The frustrating one is to have employees. And what I saw in my 4 years, and I have, I think, 30 or 40 companies that were startups and received 50,000 euros or something like this. Almost all their money was gone on taxes to our fiscal taxes for employees, even though maybe they didn't need these employees because they was themselves and their mothers or something like this. That was one really impediment: receive the money but lose the money. And also the sustainability of the program, maybe to come with another program to see, to help. This is one of the issues. The second one was there are a lot of trainings related to entrepreneurship in these programs, but, and I hope here I don't face, but the teachers are not professionals, are teachers, and there is a difference between to be taught to be an entrepreneur from a professional point of view, from a related to a real professional experience, and from the schools. This is a huge difference, because even though they go through this, they come to, I'm not an usual accountant in Romania. This is another problem, that we have accountants and we don't have business trainers like this. usually accountants work in Romania for the fiscal authorities. It's good for the fiscal, so this is what you have to do, and don't think to the business itself. They don't know that they have to have legal consultant, or they don't know this. So I agree with Miriam that it's okay, we have programs, we get to talk a lot about this. It's not the case, Raluca, and we don't go inside and to have the really problem. They don't have this information. They come to me to give them models of contracts. It's a specific example, and they don't know how legally they can be, all the business can go down, for example. These ones I wanted to point, there are a lot of them. If you want, Raluca, you know, you can come to me to make a long list. But I think you get my point related to this. And thank you for now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Anne. I would now, inspired by everything that you said, the three of you, yeah, I'm looking again at these items that are here: the culture, the strategies, the regulations, and to start with. I would like to see more of an attention of care about these specific niches of entrepreneurship. And I say women first in terms of strategies. There is no, it's a paradox that during this time working with various organizations from the ecosystem, I see that somehow entrepreneurs are, somehow in a shadow, in the sense that entrepreneurs, everybody thinks that entrepreneurs, they can manage by themselves, because this has been proven. This has been proven in the society that indeed managers are just dealing by themselves with everything that comes, and they are doing it gracefully. In Romania, by all statistics, the European Innovation Scoreboard, the competitiveness index, and so on and so forth, OECD as well tells us that Romania is is a less favorable entrepreneurial ecosystem than other EU countries. But on the other hand, that there is a dynamics of entrepreneurship, so somehow in looking back, also when I was working with companies from my position of business support expert within a certain organization, and even now, it boils down to the same idea in Romania. Managers can manage by themselves, and that's it. No need to intervene too much. And actually, there is a huge need to intervene. So I would say, first of all, strategy, and strategy as bottom up as possible, and as local as possible. It wouldn't help any woman entrepreneur to have a strategy at national level that nobody knows who will implement and how it will implement. So I would say that the strategy should be as local as possible in order to be effective, and as owned as possible. So going to the town level, absolutely. Then I would say finance, yes, because we are a country that is benefiting from huge amounts of EU funds, but nevertheless, the way that these funds are delivered to the beneficiaries is absolutely burdensome, and it poses, like Anna mentioned, artificial conditions, and those artificial conditions become the main objectives of the entrepreneur, to fix those conditions, to comply with those conditions, that they forget about the business. And I would stress upon the networks. Since I work for my own company, I am I am facing a lot of, how to say, I feel the need to invest a lot in the network, and in the network of my company, in the network that I had before, to maintain it, and so on and so forth. So I would say that the way that we create alliances, the way that we collaborate, and not only how a particular person is trying to create connections, but also how many of us are creating connections to each other. I think this needs to be pushed and needs to be far more promoted than it is now. For example, in Timișoara, we are not well known for our collaborative spirit. This is again based on the fact that we are managing by ourselves, and but I would like to see more, and maybe if we even the group today can be an informal group that can become something like a think tank, or to do something in this area, and not just to talk about it, because talking is nice, but taking action is always better. So yeah, Christian, coming back to you, but I see Bogdana. Bogdana, please join us in the conversation.
Yes, thank you, Raluca. I will be very short. I wanted, just before you started, I wanted to tell you, I had in mind right about what you said. The problem, what I identify also, and I struggle with for years, or at least in the first 3 years of business, it was the strategies, but also it was also the culture, like you said. People are not responsive. You need to know better your environment, but first of all, you need to know, okay, you have a package of skills, you decided to be entrepreneur, to open business, but first of all, you need to aim for something and to make baby steps, and to aim for step to step to grow, to make a foundation. And that's the lack of many women of the beginning of their road to this entrepreneur road, to say like that, because they miss this part of strategies. They make chaotic steps and they don't have right strategies. Like Anna said, give me a contract, or they don't know how to get from point A to point B. And they usually in Romania, this is a problem because you need to search a lot to get information and to get help, like real help, not and you are struggle. They are contradictory information. So for an entrepreneur who doesn't know how to, it's first time on this road, it's very hard for them. And another point, it's which is very important, of course, finance is the most important for business, but the most important it's networks. So for example, my case, just shortly, I am the right example from a woman who came, who make had a job in corporatia, multinationals, big companies, and then I stepped to this. I decided that I want my business, and back then I realized that it was needed. I had a background for corporation, but I didn't know nothing about entrepreneurial. And I identify in the city that it was a real need for networking, and that's why I came up with an event of a conference and small business groups, small business networking that women, especially dedicated to women, so they can came and to have the courage to meet other women, to put publicly their problem and maybe to find solution in the circle, in the network, and so on. By steadiness and persistence, we grow that network, and in the end they like, wow, you did something super. Now I found the furniture, I found an accountant, and this is very, very important. But I will mark and bold it. We need a good strategy. Thank you for.
From what you said and Raluca previously, which was already a kind of a wrap up, I have questions for you. Is there in the region a kind of chamber of commerce, or well, I know that there is a regional development agency. Could they not organize regularly role model showcase? So for instance, they could do once a month in the newspaper, or a video of a woman entrepreneur who was successful, or a woman who tried to create a business, and she can testimony about the success, but also the painful exercise it is, just to make that imagine. Why not again with a bank sponsor or whatever, to do a yearly reward for the best ideas, or the best young entrepreneur, like you have the Caesar or the Oscar at Hollywood in your region. And the last suggestion, especially for network, what could it cost for, again, a public organization with maybe, why not a sponsor, to do each month or twice a quarter, either a breakfast or 5 o'clock get together with a few women entrepreneurs, and again the would-be entrepreneurs as well. You start with somebody making a small speech, 10-15 minutes, about a common problem. We mentioned a lot already, from finance, attitude, or whatever, and then let the people introduce themselves and to start to discuss. Many years ago at RADA, I suggest this under the name of business retention, just to make sure that you understand the problem of company locally. It might be a company who say, well, I have a problem with water, or I have a problem with electricity. And you can then, especially from the public sector and intermediary organization, be informed of a problem which is taboo, or not really known by everybody, or expressed like that. And if you ensure that there is not necessarily a CNN in the room, so that the people can exchange really freely with the problem that they face, and to find solution. And then you just bring a person to another, because you know that he had overcome the issue. Maybe to sponsor intellectually that, to find a retired entrepreneur or whatever who wants to give back in society. And if I'm still working after 6 years of retirement, it was because one of the people I admire in my life, professional life, always told me, Christian, when you will be retired, what will you bring back to your community? And there you can find somebody in your city or the region who say, okay, I will dedicate a few hours a month or a quarter to promote this, because I really believe that entrepreneurship is important, and this is what I bring back to the community.
Thank you. Yes, this is very, very important, and I agree with you 100%. I see it in that way. That's why I tried all the time. I am for that, to bring back to community. The problem is with like resume, which what I wanted to say is that people, yes, there are public sectors and different programs, but still they are not well promoted. So there is the lack. People, young entrepreneurs or female entrepreneurs, they don't know so much. They are not easy access to that information. So that's why, and there is still a kind of shyness to get there, to access that. So must be for an institution or somebody like we did to get them together, like hide, let's bring, let's meet. So that's the point which I identify, like need more work to do, let's to say, to promote more this kind of events or these kinds of needs, to came with solution for this kind of needs.
Yeah, I always fight that there is in economic development some low-cost tools which are really not used. But I had a reflection of a civil servant at the AU when I showed them my paper. They said, well, Christian, this is very interesting, but not very useful, because if people don't spend the money they have through the structural fund, so we have a problem with that. But again, to bring twice a quarter to open the office of the Chamber of Commerce from 5 to 6:30 and to put there a few cookies and a bottle of water should not be a budget which is extraordinarily high and make the deficit of the chamber for the next 20 years.
Yeah, Christina, I know what you mean. You know, it's very interesting, and it's also this as well is a little bit of a paradox that there are organizations that have the resources to take such actions, but they do not prioritize such actions. And on the other hand, there are companies like Luminspino as well, that is thriving to act like a development agency, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, there are many gaps, and we are somehow stepping on the gaps, and once we step on them, we say, ah, this is a gap. I need to do something about it. Okay, but then where should I take the resources to do this, you know? Because it's a big difference in between the resources of a large organization and the resources of a small company. But I truly believe, and this is something Valentin is not here anymore from the City Hall, but he will know about the results of this meeting. I come back to the example that we, when we worked for the Smart City Strategy, and we brought together a number of people and we had debates, we had structured workshops, and we realized that in the brains of the people, the solutions to the problems, they were there, you know. We just needed to bring them out. I think it's the same in entrepreneurship, either women or youth or other type. But now coming to the women, I believe that we don't meet enough, we don't link enough, we don't share knowledge enough, and we can do this quite easily. Like you said, Christian, once a month in an informal setting, a discussion can make really big changes. Anne, I see you are willing to contribute. Please go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to say that in Timișoara there is a Chamber of Commerce I want you to know this. There were a program that were doing like this, but the COVID period started. So for a year and a half, they every Tuesday they had 1 hour with I don't know which institutions, but several institutions to come, people entrepreneurs or who are interested to ask what do I need for this and for this, but it was not promoted like Bogdana told, and it was not enough. It was a start. I don't know in other cities how is the Chamber of Commerce, but from my experience with them, I'm a chancellor there, so I'm not involved in their activity like this. It's too little because of the money that they have to pay to their involved to their employees or something like this. So they were focused. Some of these institutions that I work with was focused only to check out some of the programs from EU, so to have their salaries or something like this. So this is an important program that problem that some of the programs are not think well for our country. I don't know. Maybe you can figure this out, Raluca, or together with Christian. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca. Please, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, just a few ideas. So I don't think networking, for my experience, networking is a case of practice, makes it perfect. So we need to practice. Secondly, I think women should target networking events which are dedicated and segmented based on their criteria, such as stage of the business, industry, company size. I don't believe a generalist networking events have much impact. And now that the restrictions were raised, I think we will be delighted to support a dedicated event with the Chamber of Commerce, for example, and to present our program to interested people. But yeah, under the same condition, firstly to define the profile, and then we tried this in the past, and unfortunately we were not able to gather the relevant community. Most of the time 50% of the people that confirmed don't show up. So in order to invest in such event, we need to be sure from the beginning that we will be able to gather a relevant number of people.
Yeah.
And also what I believe is important is so that people are drawn to stories that are honest. And usually when we have such events, we will promote, we promote success stories within our portfolio, because this is how you can show well. I mean, sharing experience is valuable. So usually we invite people, entrepreneurs, to share their story, because this is the best way to do it and to deliver the message, I believe.
Yeah. With the money, too much, not enough. I have sometimes the impression that some organization, they have received the subsidies to buy the coffee, the sugar, and the cup, and they wait for the money to buy a gold spoon, forgetting that if the water is not so hot, you can use your fingers to catalyze the sugar and the coffee.
That is about real needs, you know. What are the real needs?
Okay. Some last comment with the woman, or we move slowly to the youth?
I think we move. Well, I wrote down some ideas, and I'm ready to come back to the participants with a proposal, to have some experience sharing and informal meetings.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so Christian, let's go to the next one.
Yeah. Okay. So now we go to the youth. So the next slide, more or less the same number of response. I forgot to add one between the draft and the final. So you are 8 and not 7 as mentioned. And also this wide representation with various organizations, academia and business organization. You see that the results are once more homogeneous. There is no real less value parameters, and they are higher score for youth than for women. We'll come back to that later. So we go quickly to see that for the cultural factor, like already said, there is a good promotion of the entrepreneurship for the different profile, and monitoring is rather weak. Next one. There are appropriate financial resources to implement the youth support schemes. On the other hand, support providers seems to be not as well equipped as they should like to have to support it. On it, yeah. Next one. Regulation, again, social security system, but that's a European general system and can, as already mentioned, only done at national level. For skills, entrepreneurship training is well, but there we see that the business development services are less scored, and the same as far as the tailor for the different profile of youth. Next one. So the finance, starter finance seems to be okay. Maybe it's thanks to your business angel network community there. But the needs, the assessment of the needs to identify how policy can address gaps is not as well perceived than it should be or could be used. And we come back to what was already said previously, that we don't know for women really the real needs, and not only the ones that we have in mind usually. Yeah. And the last one for networks, again, apparently there is, we are on finance, I go too quickly. Starter finance is okay. And then the monitoring and evaluation, as well as the need assessments, is not as strong as it should be. Next one. Oh, problem. Oh yeah, and the last one is about networks, and there we see that public network initiative seems to give a good opportunity for youth, but it's not really connected with the needs, and also the network should build stronger connection between entrepreneurship and support organization. So if we go again to the overall, with high perception, so good promotion of entrepreneurship, strategy allocation of appropriate financial resource. This seems to be contradictory with the finance. Regulation okay, you were there more or less, everything seems to be okay. Skills, good offer of training. Finance, good offer of starter finance. And networking, there is something made at public level. And as far as the low perception, monitoring and evaluation for culture and strategy. Regulation, we already mentioned, no strong social security. Skills, not enough tailored skill development initiative. Lack of need assessments for finance. And finally, lack of needs assessment to identify the gaps in the youth entrepreneur networks. So contrary to the woman, I found 3 or 4 points which seems to be a little bit strange. People say that there is lack of monitoring and evaluation, but there are high score for some of the ingredients of support. So how can you make good support if you don't evaluate them? So that's something to look. The training offer is good, but business development is missing. I think somebody already mentioned that previously. Access to finance seems to be the weakest parameter and the problem to identify the gaps, but business financial support for different profile of youth is delivered through appropriate channel. So, okay. And last, there are poor need assessment regarding gaps in tool network, although there is a good opportunity to network thanks to public online initiative. That seems also different. So now, again, if we can do a tour of the table with the different people, especially or young entrepreneurs, to see their experience and also expectation to change something maybe in culture, strategy, regulation, skill, finance, and network, and if possible also to see whether at which level of administration it can be changed. Who wants to start?
Yeah, maybe until people are gathering their thoughts, maybe I would refer briefly to the fact that there has been an abundance of early stage, very early stage, this type of Startup Nation program and similar, also delivered throughout other types of projects or sub-programs. So there has been an infusion of somehow not targeted funding for just inception phase of companies, mostly youth, managed by youth. So young people. This has been done somehow in not in a strategic approach, but in a more like a very wide reach way. Hence, this led to low impact. Impact was measured again through just very narrow KPIs, like how many people you employ, how many months you make your first sale or something. But actually, these were programs that even if they implied a lot of money, they didn't reach the impact. And when we look back, these are already quite unsuccess stories, you know. Yeah, I would, Ciprian raised the hand, so I will not continue now. I would like to invite him to jump in because he is dealing with many young entrepreneurs and in the role of business angel.
I just thought I'd jump in very briefly to confirm that, yes, that kind of financing didn't go towards, certainly not towards startup type entrepreneurship. It didn't stimulate that, it didn't stimulate scalable businesses and so on. But of course, and I don't know how much of that has to do with the way these programs were defined by the local management authorities, administrators. But I think what I've been seeing more recently in this cohort of the new programs that are coming in, the new financing that's coming in, I think both from the two universities who are handling such programs is that they are much more aware of the need for kind of more startup-like training and more of this entrepreneurial, scalable approach towards young entrepreneurs, towards their students who are about to become entrepreneurs, which is very encouraging because from previous experience, of course, there have been very few businesses funded through these programs, which ended up growing further or just taking a growth path. I suppose many of them continued, but they continued inside of this mold of government gives you a grant and you eventually pay it back over the next 2 or 3 years in taxes. That's it, which is fine because it stimulates entrepreneurship and the development of some nice ideas, nice small local businesses that are going to remain fairly small and local, which is lovely. But from our point of view as angels looking at the tech sector, certainly the more exponential type thinking or approach is more welcome. And it's great that the local authorities are becoming more aware of this. And I have had signals, and we're in touch with both universities, as I said, who are making an effort. It's not very easy, but they're making an effort to shift in that direction and also to integrate with other players in the ecosystem. So that is happening, and it would be great to support that kind of connection that I know they're trying and we're certainly trying, and this is what everybody's been talking about here. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it comes back to some of the previous discussion we already had about the segmentation. So probably the need for local entrepreneurs and those you qualified as a nice small business versus the high growth potential are not the same, and it's not the same support that are needed to ensure that they become successful.
Right. Nice small businesses don't need accelerators, for example, right?
That's for sure.
Yeah. And probably don't need a significant venture or angel capital and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always also something that we have to bear in mind, is to whom to talk to when you start your business. And as you mentioned, if you are a local, it's not used to dream to get money from an angel or a venture capital. Maybe to look for some crowdfunding or to go to a cooperative bank is enough. And there we need also to have a stronger link between the two community. The last time I went to Timișoara, I believe it was to work with West LDA on the model of what we call business investment readiness, where we had in the room 8 different entrepreneurial startups, and we review with them what to do before to go and speak to somebody in the financial, let's say, industry, from a guarantee to a VC. and also to send as message to adapt your business talk to the expectation of your public. A banker is just interested to know if you will pay back your credit. A business angel, as you mentioned, wants to see a business plan or a business idea who will grow exponentially in the next 3 to 5 years.
Right, and the bank is not going to believe your exponential plan.
No, for sure. It's too risky for them. It's too risky for them, I suppose. Yeah. This is where when in the questionnaire, both for women and you, because it's more or less the same, there was a question: how do you link the support services with the financial community? This is part of the normal support services to train very well the people to meet with financing organization or funding people. Okay, somebody else, Raluca took a convenient break, I suppose. I see Paul. She is there.
Sorry, no, I'm just meeting briefly somebody, but I'm with you.
No problem.
I would like to contribute, but I would like to invite first Paul because he's again an example of somebody that not only started but also scaled. I'll be back.
Yes, probably. Okay, thanks, Raluca. Yes, I would like to share some opinion on 3 points. First, finance, because we discussed before about some government grants. We started our business as part of startup programs from the government, and yes, in our case was a local, was one managed by the university here in Timișoara. And I think already was mentioned that already university started to have like a first phase of educational phase before applying or something like that. And we appreciated that, was really helpful for us, like just starting the business. And before we had some trainings, how to write a plan and all the stuff. But on the other side was missing the mentoring during implementation of the program, and was missing the accent on how to scale, and probably 5 years vision. Everything what we received was more in the direction how to do very short terms and how to secure the indicators in the program, what was for the program, how to the papers to be okay, that we hired the number of people, that we did acquisition correctly. So this was the main focus on the mentoring phase or the implementation phase. So I think my personal experience with this kind of programs, I think it should continue, and it would be good for young people because it's easy to access. Locally, there was managed by the university, so I think that was really great exposures, and there was available for everybody. But on the other side, I think that is missing more vision and how to guide the startups. On the other side, on the finance, at least in Romania, I feel that we have a lack of access to loans or invest or working capitals. At least our experience is that if we need to expand the business a little bit, and we are going to the bank, first thing they are looking to our history. We don't have too much history, of course, and then all the monies which we can get, they are really expensive for us compared with, I don't know, a startup in Germany, for example. And then it's also another point here. There are some also some governmental grants. In Romania, it's IMM Invest. I think everybody knows about it. So again, an experience as startup and young. They are looking again at some numbers for this program, especially was 2019. And we are startup. We had just the first year of our company, and we had barely nothing in terms of numbers or turnover. And of course, we were the sum which we can have in this program was really small. So I think there are some programs in conclusions for finance in Romania, like also got some governmental funds, but probably they need to be also addressed more to startups, probably in a little bit, and then also scalable, how to scale, how to offer support long term, not just short term, 1 year to implement the project. Mm-hmm. Another point about the skill strategies, I think already there were several discussions about this. In our case, I think we are still struggling a lot to define our products, to better define our products, to better define our markets. And we had just with Raluca, I don't know, several since years discussed those points, and continuously it's something we identify that we have to work on. And here I think it's a big lack on the on local. No, I don't know if it's lack of competencies. I don't think so, because the city and it's growing a lot, but I don't know. It's hard to get at the right person. And here the needs, at least in our case, it's somebody helping to define our business and to understand, because somebody with experience will better understand what we are doing and where we gonna be in 5 years than we know today. And to help to define some KPIs which we can monitor together, and then we can assess, I don't know, quarterly, or and then to be able to react very fast, not waiting 1 year and then after 1 year to see that something is not going in the directions we would like. And a last point, it's about the network. Also, there were some discussions also previously. Here I have one point. Probably it's more related to us. We as business, most of the turnover, more than 90% of our turnover, it's done in Europe and outside of Romania, let's say. So we don't have too many clients from Romania. And our networking should be outside of Romania. So we cannot do networking into the country. So, for example, to have access to some events, for example, it's one event which we would like to go in Munich. It cost us around 10,000 euro to go to that event, where we can do networking and to meet companies, people which are relevant to what we are doing. I know, for example, that in Poland, there are a lot of, I don't know if it's agencies, association, government, founded by government, but it's one agency which is going to that event and promotes and help to promote, I don't know, 10 businesses from a certain city. So for example, something like this in our case would be really helpful to have access through some kind of association or agencies to go at some big networking events. Mm-hmm. Yes, thanks.
Just one small reaction on what you said about competencies to help you to grow. I remember an example from Finland, where beside the business angels network, there was a kind of business grandfather who was put at the disposal of company on ad hoc basis to help them to overcome some of their problem that they could face. So maybe your business angel network can imagine to have that associate, and they did it by charity, because that was also a way to see if an angel club could invest in the small company who was able to grow fast, thanks to this business grandfather looking to non-financial issue in the company.
Christian, you said grandfather or godfather? Because there is a difference.
No, grandfather. So
Okay.
not somebody who knows where the grants are available somewhere. No, that can maybe a new professional for some retired people.
Yeah, this is very interesting, and again, it is about using existing resources and willingness
and networks, and also
yes.
to some extent.
Yes. You know, the what Paul mentioned about the international network, I also see this to be of a high importance. You know, because maintaining and growing an international network is not that easy at all. I mean, it's easier in proximity. And it's easier where people more or less know you from other contexts or know you from other people. But starting somewhere abroad from scratch is really, really difficult. I say this also from my experience, because I'm also working with international clients, and to maintain the relations and to grow new relations without us meeting oftenly is quite difficult. And it requires even more resources of time and energy, and also thinking about how to position your offer a little bit different. And yeah, so here come I need to arrive to this matter because it came many times into the discussion, and I believe this is essential. In Romania, we have somehow, you know, we are feeling some gaps. Us, you know, from the private sector, we are feeling many gaps in terms of support that is not present from the organizations that are supposed to give this type of support, you know. Given the fact that central organizations or public organizations, they didn't evolve so fast as the private sector, you know, it arrives to the fact that we cannot rely on so many business support services or innovation support services from public actors, you know. So we are filling the gaps ourselves, and we do this by our own networks, by our own problem solving skills, and you know. And Paul was saying the same, you know, for example, this support to go to international exhibitions, company missions, fairs, B2Bs. This is something that is really, it's not a mechanism to support you to do this. You need to struggle a lot. So yeah, let's come back to Bianca, because she has already raised the hand for a while.
Thank you, Raluca. I think the Romanian current ecosystem cannot change overnight. It needs several components working together very well. And yeah, receiving public support comes with the obligation to deliver data to monitor the evolution of the startups. Personally, I'm not a fan of social criteria such as number of employees. This is why in Raiffeisen we build our own program with our own set of rules dedicated to startups. And under factory initiative, we make our analysis based on companies' prediction and not on historical data. We do not ask for material guarantees, and the interest is comparable to any other micro company loan. And from my point of view, the Romanian government should clearly state its SMART objectives when they're developing policy and forthcoming instruments for startups. And yeah, I see a progress lately in terms of alternative financing, the presence of incubators, accelerators, business angel university, VCs, and so on. So I think it's a positive thing.
Thank you, Bianca. You lowered the hand or you raised it again?
Sorry, my intention was to lower.
Okay. Just coming back to this, also the funding and the support for various stages in a company's life, because this was also brought to the table many times. Ciprian from Business Angels said that, Paul as well. When we look, you know, many of us, we are familiar with the Startup Commons, the framework for the startup ecosystems. And in Startup Commons, we have these stages in a company, in a startup's evolution, in a company's life, from inception to scaling. This life cycle also goes when we, for example, when we apply for the European Innovation Council, we need to demonstrate the entire journey from startup to scale up with a breakthrough innovation. So okay, if we look at this journey, absolutely, there is a lot of funding and support in the early stage, in the very early stage, for stand up to startup, but definitely not for consolidation stage, not for scaling, for scale up. So this is another thing that needs to be taken into consideration. It's somehow like the funding and support is providing for the inception phase, and then everything is forgotten. This is also of a key importance. So throughout the entire life cycle. My last point is that as I saw in other ecosystems in Western Europe and not only, this type of apparently very simple and small scale initiatives like Christian, you mentioned those grandfathers in the Finnish ecosystem. This type of apparently small scale initiatives, I believe that they have the potential to expand a lot and to grow a lot and have a lot of impact. So I would rather, as well for women, as well for youth in Romania, given, like Bianca said, that the ecosystem in Romania will not change overnight. All of us, we are bringing the contribution, but it will not change overnight. So given, especially given this situation, I would definitely support both for women and youth and entrepreneurship, this type of very specific, small scale, scalable, replicable initiatives that can be soon proven as success stories, you know. And I'm sure that, for example, if a well-experienced business mentor would arrive in Paul's company, in I don't know, in 1 month, there will be a lot of value and a lot of, you know, advancement. I will stop here.
No, you are certainly right, especially at a local level. You could do this small scale because at the end of the day, people know each other better than if you have to look outside your community. And of course, to give them an excuse to come, you have to be careful not to promote someone too highly, or to be careful about competition between the people at local level. So as Paul mentioned, to have a discussion about what should or what could be done to help people to have a presence abroad could be a good topic, and then afterwards you can discuss or why to do that. I know that normally in each country there is an export board or office who goes with people in major fair like Hanover or whatever, but for some people they are more smaller fair which are more specialized than to go to a big one, and there you need indeed the right support for those people. Some other point or something which is different for youth than for women? Nobody?
Yeah, I think that people are satisfied with what they already got the chance to share.
Okay. So we can slowly move to the final reflection and perception. So this part is really from somebody sitting in an office far away from Timisoara. Next slide, Raluca, please. I put on one slide the two different results, and we see, as we mentioned, that there is a difference in the perception, with a better scoring for youth than for women, and also a problem with the strategy. So my question is there an objective reason for having these two different graphs? I understood also that from the presentation, the tour de table, that at the university, etc., there seems to be a dynamism around youth, without distinction between female and male there. So maybe that could be an explanation. Or is there an individual which is more dynamic to promote youth than women as entrepreneurship? Next slide, please. I try to make in 2 slides the first and the last score. So you see that for culture, monitoring is really the issue. On one hand, you have promotion of entrepreneurship for different profile of youth is seen as a good point. And for the women is formal education, building positive attitude. For strategy, on one side, you have allocation of appropriate financial resources. On the other side, it's more that the support provider seems to be well equipped to work. And evaluation is again weak for both groups. For skills, they are the same, good offer of training, and not enough tailored skills development initiative for the different profile. Plus for the woman, that the linkage between business and non-financial organization is not as strong as it should be. Next slide. Finance, startup is there, and this is what we discussed a few minutes ago, that for startup is okay, but not for the other steps of the development cycle of a company. On the weak point, the lack of needs assessments to address the gaps for the provision of finance to young entrepreneur. And for women, it's more about the monitoring. And then for networks, you have a good online public network and the lack of needs. And strange enough, this lack of needs is not perceived as a problem for the woman, as it said that this is what it works well. But public women entrepreneur network is not actively manage or animate. Next slide. So if I make a summary again, from somebody who have just read a few pages, we have similarities about skill perception for the two sample, weak use of evaluation and monitoring for culture, strategy, and skill parameters. Entrepreneurship is widely promoted to address women and youth target, apparently, and objective and targets are more or less well defined by a strategy, which it was not so strongly reflected in the discussion we had, I must admit. And the divergence are mainly in the fact that cultural factors in for youth are not the same than for women, the same with strategy, regulation, finance on it. And I also saw, but it's not there, that the link between finance and non-financial support are seen as high for youth and weak for women. So strange situation apparently. And if we continue then, what conclusion? The first is addressed to you, and then I will come with some suggestion from my side. So have you seen additional concern? Have you seen other bottlenecks? We discussed that, which are the more soft needs not covered for women. Was it worth for the people who replied to the questionnaire? Was it, or is it worth to use the tool more largely, so that you invite a few people more to go on to it and to say? What are the main ideas to bring back in your organization? And final remarks? During the tour de table, everybody was really enthusiastic to be with us this afternoon. So after my long speech, you still say, Jesus, better to do something else today afternoon.
Yeah, it's the well, it happens. It happens that you know, these digital digital meetings, they just take over. But I really, you know, how often do we go into so much detail? How often are we willing to go into such detail? Because if we do not go into such detail, we can never understand completely. We have biases of our own. We have perceptions of our own about what is happening in our ecosystem, and so on and so forth. But I think that we need to move beyond what is just you know, educated guess, you know. We need to move further. And what I was about concerns, I heard much more much more concerns than I expected to hear today, really. And that thing I think is very precious. I wrote down many concerns that I heard from the participants, and definitely I would like to ask those that didn't participate yet in the self-assessment to do it as well. It would be interesting then to have one more look with more people and after this workshop. And before I give the floor to Mariana, because she already raised her hand for a while, I would say that you know, about main ideas to bring back in my organization. I don't think that any of us has a passive role in whatever we want to change. I mean, it doesn't matter that we are public or private, or we have it in our mission or not. As an organization, I believe that each of us we need to have an active role into this. I would suggest that we look also at the unusual possibilities to create something that would bring the change, not only to look in the usual directions, you know, the usual organizations, the usual partners. So yeah, and I will also add some things, but I would like to leave the participants first. Mariana, please.
Okay, it is just to prove that I didn't lose my enthusiasm. So yes, I was here, and I want to have a very short intervention from my experience that I had run both women and youth-oriented project in the university or in cooperation with the Chamber of Commerce of Arad, of course. I think that it is much more about the culture, the popular culture, the things that are common in our everyday life, the perception of the human being, of the one human, the perception of another. Because, you know, running those projects, having training for entrepreneurs, both women and young people, of course, in different periods, training run by specialists. So we had invited organization of women entrepreneurs in Arad. It is led by one of biggest SMEs in Arad. And, you know, when it was a group of women coming and wanting to learn or whatever, the perception of the university, of other people, of people around them was okay, they are women, what do they want? They have the same advantages as every people, so as men. But when we had courses for youth, yes, of course, they are young, they have to learn, they have to have businesses, they have to assure our pensions, of course. So I think I wanted only to emphasize the subject of culture, because it is very, very important, as I have seen from our projects. And even if the activities were not at the university, but at the Chamber of Commerce, I had the same experience. So I think we need to be much more aware of the fact that women have, yes, of course, the same rights, and they have the same tools. And if one of us wants more, we have to apply for other tools. And I want to my second point is about towards having done the self-assessment. Yes, I have done both. And I had in mind that perception that I have already spoken about. So about the two projects, about two trainings maybe that we organized, or projects I used to run. And one other point about the self-assessment, yes, it was worth to have it, but I think people who will have it from now on will have another perception, and the answers maybe have to be tailored to the fact that they already participated in this debate. Am I right?
Yeah, probably, yeah. That's the aim of the exchange after that the people have done the exercise by their own, to have this exchange as we have today, to see whether your perception fits with the others. And you come from one profile, you say you manage program, and we had luckily this time entrepreneur with us, business angels, etc., who can have a different perspective than you have. So that's very interesting indeed.
Okay.
Thank you, Mariana. I know that Miriam wanted to say something, so I would like to leave you the floor.
Yes, thank you. With the risk of standing between you and the evening, I'll try to be very brief, and I'm sorry if I'm repetitive, but I feel like as a key takeaway, it's very important, at least for me, to make this more coherent maybe than my first and last intervention. I think it's very important for us to, I totally agree with Mariana. And I feel like the narrative to build an environment specifically for women just because it's faulty, and this is what generates a kind of a cultural resistance to it. So I think the narrative, if this is my key takeaway, if the narrative could be a bit changed, like addressing the specific challenges and barriers that stem from being a woman, it might be more effective and more culturally acceptable, at least in some cultures who might turn out to be a bit reluctant to accepting specific incentives or mechanisms for women, because they feel like actually women, just because they are women, they indeed in that jurisdiction or culture have actually the same opportunities as men. So maybe it's not clear enough, and we should together work more on explaining that there are indeed some obstacles, and that they are not general. They are very particular, or challenges. No, I don't want to say obstacles anymore. There are challenges. And this is, I think, a better way to appeal to this type of kind of a resistance. And that's all. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, wording is important when you try to change the culture of the people.
Mariana, you had one more.
Yeah, I wanted only to make a very short question to all the women who are here. Do you feel comfortable with the thing that you are a vulnerable group? Because I don't.
Who said we are a vulnerable group?
Every project and every form that we have to fill in, always we have to tick we are vulnerable group just because we are women.
Well, okay, I can agree to be a vulnerable group as long as I get all the support that a vulnerable group gets.
Okay, sorry. It was only a comment to Miriam's intervention. Sorry.
No, but again, wording is important. How can you promote a positive image to be an entrepreneur if you put in front of the office, we receive vulnerable group here?
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
and you are right. In the literature for this initiative by OECD, it's written entrepreneurship for vulnerable groups.
Yeah.
They should have said initiative to have more entrepreneurs in whatever it is, or and to give a positive image instead of having this wording which is a little bit negative.
Okay. However, I think that the gender balance should be, of course, here and in other fields too.
Yeah, but equality is different than vulnerability.
Yeah.
At least if I know English
enough
to understand the subtleties between words. But okay.
Yeah, that was. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, what you mentioned about your training comes to my existential reflection with entrepreneurship. Do people born entrepreneur, or is it really that you can train somebody to become an entrepreneur? We have still maybe one or two entrepreneurs with us to say that they can testimony that they dream to be entrepreneur, like Mr. Macron at the age of 6 said, I want to be the president of the French Republic.
Yeah, we have Anne and Miriam, they already raised hands. Anne, please.
Ah, yeah, sorry.
Both. So you can be born with entrepreneurial skills. Maybe you can come from to inherit some in your family also, but you also train somebody to become an entrepreneur. Probably it would be the difference between the biggest one and the biggest 1 to 10% and the others, but it's both. Yes.
It's very nice that you asked that question, because coincidence or not, I just read this somewhere. I think, I hope I'm not mistaken, his name is Shane Parrish, and does a very interesting blog in UK. And he said something like, the progress of humankind is threaded on entrepreneurship. We were born entrepreneurs historically, because from the very, very beginning, this is how society evolved, with trades, with exchanges between each other. So it kind of implied that it's actually in our DNA, and those who don't feel like entrepreneurs, maybe they haven't sharpened this deep skill that there is in each one of us, and maybe it's just dormant for various reasons.
Yeah. Raluca, a last point, or we go to my last slide?
Yes. Mariana, did you have one more point or not really? Because I saw you.
Yeah, it was only an idea because nobody wanted to contribute anymore. Yes, we are tired, of course. It was without break. Yes, even I am not an entrepreneur. I work with a lot of them. I'm part of Enterprise Europe Network and not only. Yes, I think the ladies before speaking before are right, more or less. As I have seen, you need some inherited skills. You need some skills in order to become a good entrepreneur. You can't learn everything. You have to have that feel of something. It was that I have seen at the companies and the people I work with. So you are entrepreneur by nature. Yes, of course, you can learn, you can become much more better. You can become a good entrepreneur. But if you are anti-talent or something like that, you are counter this by nature, probably you won't be a good entrepreneur ever. So that was only my point. Thank you.
Well, okay, Christian, we would be very pleased to know your feedback and your conclusions to what we spoke. Anne, I saw your hand raised. Would you like to make one more point?
A little comment.
Yes,
Of
please.
course, we entrepreneurs need also employees. So thank God that we are not all entrepreneurs, because employees are a resource that we lack here in Timișoara. So sorry for
Yeah.
this.
That is true.
You.
That is true. That is true.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, to wrap it up from my side, I'm very happy that we took the time to discuss things in this structure and in this context, things that we already navigate through every day. We face these things every day. They are very familiar to us. Well, I would come back to the to saying that we should as well think ourselves what we can do about it and do something about it, and then on the other hand lobby and push and talk to other people and also try to make these topics of importance as well important for others. And then then some exponential effect should happen. Christian, we would like to know your to pick your brain. Yeah. Actually, at the end of this long meeting, I didn't take the break because I know that people can take a break anytime during the well, with the exception of you, Christian.
Yeah. that was in mind exactly when you told it. No, I think that we have point out some of the unusual issue that you read in books, especially with the specific needs of women. For the other point, on one hand, I think that they are rather common everywhere when we discuss the issue. But on the other point, I think there are small things that could be taken in place with just a little bit goodwill or somebody who says, okay, I will do things. And when we was talking about this idea for networking in the informal way, when you see, at least at the town where I'm living, what the Rotary Club is able to achieve for so many different things. So why is it not possible for some entrepreneurs to talk and exchange and do things to help each other to overcome common problem, not competition problems or whatever. So this is what I take over. What's next? First of all, Raluca and I, we will have to write a small report to send to the OECD. And hopefully they send it back somewhere in Romania. If they have a Romanian representative at OECD, they show what we did. I think I will also nominate Raluca to be interviewed and to be on the website of the OECD to explain what she experienced on this exercise. Of course, if we had people from Bucharest, Arad, and so on, if they want to do a similar exercise with some people of their city or region, I will help. It's not too difficult to start. I have to create a user group into the OECD platform, and then it goes for it. And finally, I will also advise you to follow the implementation of the EU action plan regarding social economy, because they want to use this tool to wider promotion and also to discuss how to reinforce social economy in the different territory of the EU. That's more or less all for me. Thank you everybody for the contribution, and especially for Raluca, who decided, and that's probably her entrepreneurial soft mindset, to go for it without having been subsidized by the OECD or the EU. So for me, this is a sign that she was able to have an intellectual priority versus a financial interest. And this is also sometimes good to sit and just to think without having a bank close to the door. So thank you. And I'm available for a follow-up, Raluca, or you and the group.
Thank you, Christian. And it's not often that we get a chance to sit actually with somebody like you. And I would like to stress this again, not to just flatter you, but to say the truth, that actually you are one of the few people in Europe that actually have the experience and the extent of the intelligence and the mind to cover such complex realities that we are facing. And it has been a privilege. Thank you so much. And we would like to, at least myself, and I suppose that some of the people here as well would like to do this again in another format. I am very appreciative and respectful to entrepreneurs, and especially to entrepreneurs in Romania. And I try to express this respect every time that I get a chance. And in terms of intellectual versus financial incentives, I would definitely say that, what I do is that I do many things that are with an intellectual reward. And I'm happy that I can do that even if I'm just a small company. So it's possible. Yeah, and I would like to thank everybody. And I am very much pleased that you stayed until the end of the meeting. We got a chance to meet many times throughout the weeks and the months, and yeah, it was also a way to honor our relationship. So yeah, thank you very much. So
Bye.
there will be feedback to this, and then we stay in touch. Okay, take care and enjoy the evening.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.